He looked at the fountain, eyes distant. Li Hua was the only person who ever saw me for who I was. She used to call me Weigi and laugh at how serious I always was. She didn't care about money or image. She just wanted me to smile. He paused. She died because of a fire. But I've never believed it was an accident. Mei Lin held her breath. Li Wei continued, voice like steel. There was one staff member that night who disappeared right after, Zhao Yan's sister. Mei Lin gasped. That's why she hates you? She thinks I covered it up, that I let her sister take the fall. But I never knew the full truth. And by the time I started asking questions, it was too late. Silence stretched between them. I'm sorry, she whispered. He looked at her, eyes soft. You shouldn't have to carry this. I want to. He shook his head. You don't understand. People around me don't stay. They're either bought off, threatened, or buried. She took his hand. I'm not afraid. But deep inside she was. Not of him. Of what it would cost to love someone like him. Later that night, Mei Lin returned to her dorm to find the door slightly ajar. Her blood ran cold. She stepped inside slowly. Nothing looked out of place except a single object on her bed. A white rose, with a note tucked beneath it. She picked it up. You're not the only one he lied to. Ask him about the Shanghai deal. Ask him what he did to keep his throne. No signature. No return address. But the message was clear, and it cracked a piece of her already fragile trust. The next morning, Mei Lin stared at the white rose on her desk. She hadn't slept, not even for a second. The note's final line haunted her. Ask him about the Shanghai deal. She had no idea what the deal was. But if someone went through the trouble of leaving a note and breaking into her dorm, it wasn't nothing. And if Li Wei had lied, what else hadn't he told her? At LWC headquarters, Li Wei sat alone in his glass office, facing the skyline. His phone buzzed. A message from Mei Lin. Meet me. Now. Not the garden, your penthouse. I need the truth. He stared at the message for a long time before replying. I'll send a car. An hour later, Mei Lin stood in the elevator of the tallest building in the city. Her heart thundered in her chest. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into the penthouse for the first time. It was sleek, cold, monochrome. Everything you'd expect from a man like Li Wei. Until her eyes found a corner filled with paintbrushes, an old upright piano, and a small picture of a smiling girl in a school uniform. Li Hua, you came. She turned. He stood there in a soft gray sweater, looking less like a CEO and more like a tired man, desperate for something real. I have a question, she said without greeting him, and I need the truth. He nodded slowly. Ask. She pulled the note from her coat pocket and handed it to him. He read it once and his face darkened. Where did you get this? It was on my bed last night. Someone got into my dorm. He looked up sharply. Are you okay? That's not the point. He took a breath. I see. So, she asked. What happened in Shanghai? Li Wei turned away, walking to the window. That deal was 5 years ago. A rival company tried to steal our medical patents. We fought back legally. They brought in dirty players. Did you do something illegal? No, he said firmly. Then he paused. But I made someone else do something. What do you mean? He exhaled. The only way to protect the company was to let an insider plant false data in their system. I gave the order. I didn't ask how it would be done. Mei Lin's face paled. That's corporate espionage. Yes, you lied. I didn't lie, he said quietly. I just never told you. Because I knew once I did, you'd look at me like you are now. Mei Lin took a step back. So what else have you done? Everything I had to, he said, a voice hollow. To survive. To stay on top. To protect what's mine. She shook her head. Then maybe I don't know you at all. Li Wei's voice cracked. You know me better than anyone else ever has. But maybe that's not enough. Silence. Then she turned and walked to the elevator. He didn't stop her. He just stood there, the skyline behind him, his world unraveling one piece at a time. Outside the building, a black car watched her leave. Inside, Zhao Yan smiled from behind tinted windows. She's starting to break, she said into her earpiece. On the other end of the line, Director Song replied, Good. Begin the final phase. Zhao's eyes glittered. It's almost over. That evening, Mei Lin returned to her dorm to find her roommate, Jia, packing in a hurry. What's going on? She asked. They're clearing the whole floor, Jia said. Some anonymous tip about a bomb threat. What? It's probably nothing, but the cops are being thorough. You should grab your stuff and stay with a friend. Mei Lin felt cold all over. Another anonymous threat, another scare tactic. Whoever was targeting her wasn't just playing games anymore. Across the city, Li Wei was already moving. After Mei Lin walked out, he called his security team. Lock down all routes to her dorm. Monitor every incoming and outgoing signal. I want eyes on her 24/7. Yes, sir. He knew what this meant. Zhao Yan was escalating. And Mei Lin was caught in the middle. Again. That night, Mei Lin sat on a rooftop overlooking the campus, her arms wrapped around her knees. The city lights glittered below, indifferent to her confusion. She didn't hear footsteps behind her until a coat was gently laid over her shoulders. She turned. Li Wei stood there, breath visible in the cold air, eyes heavy. I shouldn't have come, he said quietly, but I couldn't stay away. She didn't say anything. I know I've done things that make it hard to trust me, he continued. And I know I should have been honest sooner. But I'm not here to beg for forgiveness. Then why are you here? He took a breath. Because I need you to know something. He sat beside her, hands resting on his knees. When I met you, I didn't think you'd matter. I thought it was just a blind date, a favor for a friend. But the moment you smiled at me, something inside me shifted. Mei Lin blinked back tears. I tried to stay away, he said, because you deserve better than a man whose world is made of secrets and shadows. But I'm tired of pretending. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, worn bracelet, one she had dropped during their second meeting. I kept this, because I couldn't let go of you. Her lips trembled. I'm not perfect, he whispered. But I swear I've never felt anything more real than this. Mei Lin looked at him, the anger softening behind her eyes. I'm scared, she admitted, because every time I fall for someone, they leave. I won't leave. She hesitated. Then slowly she leaned her head against his shoulder. They sat like that, under the stars, with no promises and no guarantees, just the quiet beating of two wounded hearts. But far below, someone was watching through a sniper scope, and their finger was on the trigger. A shadow moved across a rooftop 3 buildings away, invisible to the city below. The wind was soft, but the tension in the air could be cut with a knife. Inside the sniper's headset, a voice crackled. Target in sight? The sniper adjusted their scope. Affirmative. Both subjects on rooftop. Hold for green light. Director wants visual confirmation. The sniper didn't respond, just continued watching. Mei Lin and Li Wei sitting close, unaware of the crosshairs dancing over their heads. Down on the street, a sleek black SUV pulled into a hidden alley. Inside it, Wang Ji, Li Wei's top bodyguard, spoke rapidly into his comms. "Alpha team in position. Perimeter locked." Another voice responded. "Copy that. Drone confirms unmarked vehicle with thermal signature on adjacent rooftop. Possible high-caliber rifle detected." Wang Ji didn't wait. "Deploy interceptor drone. Now." On the rooftop, Mei Lin finally sat up. She looked into Li Wei's face, eyes vulnerable despite his strength. "I want to trust you," she whispered. "But I'm scared. I know. I don't want to run anymore." "You won't have to," he said. "Not as long as I'm breathing." A faint buzzing noise reached his ears, barely noticeable, like a mosquito. But years of survival had taught Li Wei to listen to everything. He stiffened. "What is it?" Mei Lin asked. "Get down." He pushed her flat onto the rooftop as a sharp crack rang out through the air. A bullet shattered the concrete behind them. Screams echoed down below as the report of the rifle sent flocks of birds into the air. Li Wei rolled, pulling Mei Lin behind a vent structure, shielding her with his body. "We're under fire," he hissed into a tiny mic clipped to his collar. "Confirmed," Wang Ji's voice crackled back. "Sniper located. Interceptor en route." "Keep her safe," Li Wei ordered. "No matter what." Another bullet whistled past. Mei Lin covered her ears, trembling. "Why is this happening?" she cried. "Who wants us dead?" "Not us," he growled. "You." She froze. "They want to break me," Li Wei said. "And you're how they'll do it." In a black van nearby, Zhao Yan watched the rooftop through a monitor. "Missed?" she muttered. Her assistant paled. Wind shifted. It wasn't clean. "I told you," Zhao snapped. "We don't kill him. Not yet." "What now?" "Pull the shooter, stage another warning. If she doesn't leave him willingly, we'll force her hand." She smiled coldly. "Or her family's." Back on the rooftop, a loud crack shook the sky as a drone zipped over the sniper's perch. The shooter cursed, grabbing their gear and escaping down the stairwell as the drone relayed images to LWC security. Mei Lin sobbed into Li Wei's chest as sirens blared in the distance. "This is insane," she whispered. "I'm just a student." "Not anymore," he said, wrapping his arms around her. "You're mine now. And my world isn't safe." She looked up at him, tears glistening. "Then why bring me into it?" "Because without you," he said, "none of it matters." Later that night, in a hidden suite inside the LUC tower, Mei Lin sat wrapped in a blanket. Her hands were still shaking. Li Wei returned, having just spoken with his head of security. They pulled the shooter. No casualties. But this was a message. "From who?" He hesitated. "Someone who's been circling for years. Zhao Yan, ex-intelligence. She's been trying to take me down from the inside. And now she's targeting me. She knows you're my weakness." "Great," Mei Lin muttered, hugging her knees. "I just wanted to study economics, not dodge bullets." He knelt in front of her. "I can keep you safe." "Can you?" she asked softly. "Can anyone?" Li Wei didn't answer, because deep down he wasn't sure anymore. The next morning, Mei Lin called her father. She didn't tell him everything, but he heard the strain in her voice. "Are you okay?" he asked. She paused. "Not really. Come home." I can't, not yet." He sighed. "You've always had your mother's heart, brave but reckless." "I think I'm in love with someone I shouldn't be." "Then that means it's real." She blinked. "What?" "If it were easy," he said, "it wouldn't matter." Meanwhile, Zhao Yan was already planning her next move. She had surveillance photos, Mei Lin's class schedule, a list of everyone she ever spoke to, and a new directive from Director Song. Break them up within 7 days. Zhao smiled and picked up a phone. Hello? Yes. This is the bursar's office. We've encountered irregularities in Mei Lin Zhang's tuition payment. Unfortunately, her scholarship has been flagged for review. At LWC Tower, Li Wei poured tea with trembling hands. He hadn't trembled in years. But this girl, she made him feel everything. Vulnerability, love, fear. He looked at the bracelet she'd left on the table. She wore it every day until last night. Was it a sign? Then he heard a voice outside his office. It was Mei Lin. But she wasn't alone. Zhao Yan stood beside her. Li Wei's eyes darkened. The trap had begun. The silence in the room felt suffocating. Zhao Yan stood with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, while Mei Lin looked lost, her eyes flickering from Li Wei to the woman beside her. Li Wei rose slowly from his desk. Zhao Yan, what are you doing here? Just escorting our guest, she said smoothly. Mei Lin had some questions about her future. I thought it best she get answers directly from you. Mei Lin gave him a fragile smile, but there was confusion in her gaze. Something had changed. Li Wei walked around the desk and stood beside her. You okay? She hesitated before nodding. I think so. He glanced at Zhao. You spoke with her? Zhao's smile sharpened. Briefly. Just about logistics. Her scholarship situation, potential media attention, the impact of dating a high-profile CEO, the basics. Mei Lin flinched. Li Wei stepped between them. That's enough? Zhao's eyes gleamed. Of course, sir. Just trying to help. She left the room like a shadow dissolving into air. The moment she was gone, Li Wei turned to Mei Lin. What did she say to you? Mei Lin didn't answer right away. She stared out the window, the skyline reflected in her eyes like 1,000 futures she might never reach. She said, I'm a liability. Li Wei's jaw tightened. She said dating you would put a target on my back, that your enemies would destroy my family, my name, everything I care about. Did you believe her? I don't know, she whispered. I don't know what's real anymore. Li Wei gently took her hands. Then believe this. I will protect you, no matter what it takes. But at what cost? She asked. You're already under siege. I don't want to be the reason you fall. He looked her dead in the eyes. Then be the reason I rise. Zhao Yan made her way to the lower garage where a nondescript sedan waited. Inside sat a woman in her 50s with eyes like knives. You spoke with her? The woman asked. Zhao nodded. She's cracking. Good. Apply pressure. Start with the father. Yes, Director. The woman passed over a file. And leak this. Zhao flipped through the dossier. Her smile returned. This will bury them. Meanwhile, at a café across town, Mei Lin's friend Yu Fei clicked on a news link and dropped her phone. The headline was brutal. University scholarship student involved in secret affair with billionaire CEO tuition scandal uncovered. The article claimed Mei Lin had used falsified documents to win her scholarship and hinted that her relationship with Li Wei was payment for silence. Photos, edited screenshots, half-truths. Yu Fei called her immediately. Mei, it's everywhere. You need to come online right now. No, Mei Lin said, her voice shaking. I can't breathe. They're dragging your name. They're threatening your scholarship. Tears filled Mei Lin's eyes. Then it's already over. No, Li Wei said firmly. It's just beginning. He was already on the phone with his legal team. Later that night, Mei Lin sat in the dark, her laptop closed beside her. Her father called again. "Come home, May." "I can't. They'll come for you." "They already have," he said quietly. "There are reporters outside the apartment." Her heart dropped. "I'm so sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for," he said. "But you need to be smart now, careful. These people don't fight fair." "I don't want to lose him," she whispered. "Then don't," her father said. "But don't lose yourself either." She hung up and stared into the night. She didn't sleep, because the war had begun. And in the morning, they'd come for her future. The sun rose on a city humming with chaos, but inside Li Wei's penthouse, silence reigned. Mei Lin stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold together the pieces of her unraveling world. The morning light spilled across the floor like a quiet witness to the storm inside her chest. Li Wei had barely slept. He was seated at the kitchen island, phone in hand, his expression a mix of rage and exhaustion. Several empty coffee mugs littered the counter, a testament to these sleepless nights spent in war mode, strategizing, calling lawyers, trying to get ahead of the media firestorm. "This isn't just about you anymore," he said, not looking up. "They've launched a campaign." She turned to him slowly. "But why me? I'm no one." His fingers curled around the phone. "That's exactly why. You don't have the power to fight back." She walked toward him, barefoot, every step feeling heavier than the last. Then let's end this. If I leave, the noise will fade. They won't care anymore." He looked up sharply, pain flashing through his eyes. "You think they'll just stop? May, this isn't about you as a person. It's about what you represent." She stopped in front of him. "And what's that?" "A threat. A poor girl from nowhere who made a man like me vulnerable. To them, that's dangerous." A lump formed in her throat. "Then I'll disappear." "No," he said, voice firm. "You'll stay. With me." Her eyes welled up. "Even if I'm the reason everything falls apart?" He reached out and took her hand. "You're not the reason. You're the reason I finally have something worth fighting for." A soft knock interrupted the moment. Xiao Zhang, his assistant, stepped in with a folder clutched to his chest. His face was grim. "Sir, the situation is worse than we thought. The fake documents. They were planted inside Mei Lin's university records. Someone accessed the system using admin credentials. It has no idea how." Mei Lin's knees went weak. She gripped the edge of the table to stay standing. "You mean the university thinks it's real?" "They've suspended her pending investigation," Zhang said. "And reporters are camped outside the dean's office. Someone tipped them off." Li Wei stood slowly. "Who's behind this?" Zhang hesitated. "Our best guess, Zhao Yan. And she's working with someone powerful, possibly government-affiliated." Mei Lin's breath hitched. "Government? Why would they care about me?" "They don't," Li Wei said. "They care about me." He turned to Zhang. "Get my father on the line." Zhang nodded and disappeared. Mei Lin's voice was barely a whisper. "Your father?" Li Wei sighed, walking over to the window. "This isn't just a smear campaign. It's a power play. My father has enemies, and now they see you as my weakness. And Zhao Yan? She wants control of the company. She's leveraging the scandal to make it happen." Mei Lin sank into a chair, the weight of everything pressing down on her chest. "I can't survive this." "You don't have to survive it alone," he said. She didn't respond. Because something inside her had already begun to break. Later that day, Mei Lin sat alone in the back of a car, Li Wei's security detail escorting her to a safe location until the media frenzy died down. Outside the tinted windows, she caught glimpses of the city she once loved, Its vibrant streets, its food stalls and bookstores, its quiet corners. It felt foreign now, like a place she no longer belonged. Her phone buzzed. It was Yu Fei. "Turn on the news, now." Mei Lin hesitated before opening the stream. A reporter stood outside her university. "This just in. Anonymous sources claim Mei Lin was paid large sums of money over the past year by a private shell company connected to the Wei Corporation." Mei Lin's mouth fell open. "They've fabricated payment trails," she muttered. There were images of wire transfers, her student ID, even a forged apartment lease in a luxury complex, none of it true. And then the interview began, with Zhao Yan. "She was clearly using Mr. Li Wei," Zhao said in a rehearsed, concerned tone. "We don't know her true motives, but we must protect the integrity of our institution." Mei Lin dropped the phone. Her hands were shaking. The car stopped. The driver turned. "Ma'am, we've arrived." She stepped out slowly, taking in the unfamiliar villa, high walls, security cameras, distant mountains in the background. Safe, isolated, trapped. Back in the city, Li Wei stood before the board of directors. He had called an emergency meeting, not to defend himself, but to declare war. "I know what some of you think," he began, his voice cold and steady. "You think this scandal proves I'm unfit to lead, that I've let personal emotions cloud my judgment." Silence. "But let me ask you, what kind of leader turns his back on loyalty, on courage, on someone who stood by him when he had nothing but enemies at his back?" He looked at Zhao Yan, who smiled politely from her seat. "This isn't just about Mei Lin. This is about corruption, about manipulation. Someone has used company resources to launch a personal vendetta, and I intend to find out who." He slammed on a file. "Starting today, every department will undergo a full audit. If anyone here is involved in this breach, resign now or be exposed." A low murmur rippled across the room. Zhao Yan's smile faded, because she knew he was coming for her. That night, Mei Lin received a call from a blocked number. She almost didn't answer, but something in her gut told her to pick up. "Hello?" A soft voice replied, "Miss Mei Lin, you don't know me, but I know what they're doing to you." "Who is this?" "A friend, someone who used to work inside the system. They framed you, and they're planning more." Her heart thudded. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw your interview at the scholarship panel last year. You spoke about changing the world with honesty and kindness, and I realized we need more people like you." Tears blurred her vision. "What do I do?" The voice dropped lower. "There's a document, one Zhao Yan buried. It proves your real scholarship application was spotless. Find it, and you can turn the tide." "Where is it?" "Look inside the admissions vault at East Dorm Archives. But go tonight. They'll erase it by morning." The line went dead. Mei Lin stared at the phone. And then she ran. 2 hours later, Mei Lin crouched in the shadows of her university, disguised in a hoodie, her heart pounding in her ears. She had snuck past security, scaled a side gate, and now stood outside the archives building. The door was locked with a digital passkey. She took a breath and picked up a rock. Crash. The glass shattered. She slipped inside, praying no alarms had triggered. Rows of cabinets loomed around her like a forest of secrets. She searched blindly, her hands trembling, until there. A sealed envelope labeled Wei Corporation External Candidate File. She tore it open. Inside were printed emails, evaluation sheets, and a final scorecard, unmarked, original, and dated 6 months prior to the doctored files. Tears welled up. Proof. Her proof. Footsteps echoed down the hall. She stuffed the documents into her backpack and fled out the back, disappearing into the night. Back in the villa, Mei Lin laid out the files before Li Wei. He read through them slowly, then looked up at her with something dangerous in his eyes. "Let's end this," he said. And she knew this time they wouldn't be fighting back. They'd be taking control. The following morning, the internet awoke to an explosion. Li Wei's legal team had acted fast. At exactly 7 a.m., the original untouched scholarship documents were released through an official press statement, with digital metadata verifying timestamps and sender trails. Mei Lin's real application had been flawless. Top recommendations, community work, academic brilliance. The forged files? Traced back to Zhao Yan's personal assistant's laptop. Social media flipped. The narrative turned on its head. Suddenly, Mei Lin wasn't a gold digger. She was a victim, a fighter, a name that trended on every Chinese social platform for 24 straight hours. People began asking hard questions. Who had targeted her? Why? What else was being hidden? And at the center of it all stood Li Wei, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes trained on the boardroom camera as he gave a press conference that silenced a city. "The world may see me as cold, calculated, untouchable," he said. "But when a woman I care for is attacked for simply being herself, I will burn down the walls they try to trap her in. Let this be a warning. Your lies have met their match." The camera cut to Mei Lin, seated silently at his side. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Her presence was her power now. In a quiet café not far from the chaos, Zhao Yan watched the news stream cut out. Her fingers twitched. Her manicured nails dug into her palm. She had underestimated Mei Lin. Worse, she had underestimated Li Wei's willingness to defy his family, his board, and the system to protect her. Beside her sat a man in a gray suit, sharp cheekbones, unsmiling. "You promised she'd break," Zhao hissed. He sipped his espresso. "I said she'd bend. You didn't account for how much she means to him." Zhao stood. "Then we escalate. We go after her family." The man raised an eyebrow. "You'd cross that line?" "I already have," she said, tossing the money on the table. "Now it's about survival." 3 days later, Mei Lin stood outside her mother's modest apartment in a quiet alleyway in the South District. She hadn't seen her mother since the story went viral. She'd asked Li Wei to keep her away for safety. But now the worst was over, or so she thought. She knocked. No answer. She tried again. The door creaked open, but inside was a mess. The table overturned, clothes on the floor, shattered glass. Her blood ran cold. She ran inside. "Mama!" No one. Then her phone rang. No caller ID. She answered, breathless. "You've gotten brave, haven't you?" Zhao Yan's voice coiled like a snake in her ear. "Where's my mother?" Mei Lin's voice cracked. "She's fine. For now. But accidents happen when people go snooping where they shouldn't." "You're insane." "No, dear. I'm just practical. Li Wei made a choice. Now he can live with the consequences." The line went dead. Mei Lin collapsed to her knees, tears spilling freely. Her mother. The one person who had always believed in her. Who had gone without food so Mei Lin could study. Gone. Not dead, but taken. Used like a pawn. She called Li Wei instantly. He answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" "They took her. Zhao Yan took my mother." Silence. Then his voice, quiet, deadly. "Get back to the penthouse. I'll find her." By nightfall, every available private investigator on Li Wei's payroll was scanning CCTV footage, phone records, credit card activity, and back channels. They found her. A private property outside the city, leased under an anonymous shell company, connected to Chow's family trust. The building had one entrance, guarded. Surveillance inside was minimal, intentionally so. Li Wei didn't wait. He got in his car, alone. "Sir," Zhang said, chasing after him. "You can't just storm in." Li Wei didn't stop. "Watch me." An hour later, headlights cut through the darkness as Li Wei's black car approached the building. He stepped out into the cold wind, wearing only a dark coat, eyes burning with purpose. A guard at the gate tried to block him. One look from Li Wei made the man step aside. Inside, the air smelled like dust and silence. And then he heard it. A cough. A faint one. He followed the sound down a hallway and opened a door. Mei Lin's mother sat in a chair, hands bound, eyes tired but alive. "Madam Chen," he said gently. She looked up, startled. You're him." He smiled faintly. "Let's get you home." As they exited, another car pulled up. "Zhao Yan." She stepped out, heels clicking on the gravel. "So you came." Li Wei didn't even flinch. "This ends now." She laughed. "You can't touch me. I have ties that go deeper than you know." "Maybe," he said. "But now I have public sympathy. And people are watching. You'd be surprised how fast alliances shift when corruption leaks." She paused. He continued, stepping closer. "You tried to destroy her. You failed. Now leave us alone, or I won't stop at exposure. I'll come for everything." Zhao Yan opened her mouth, but no words came. Because for the first time, she saw him not just as a cold CEO. She saw him as a man who had found his reason, and nothing was more dangerous than that. Back at the penthouse, Mei Lin embraced her mother with tears spilling freely. "I thought I lost you," she whispered. Her mother stroked her hair. "I knew he'd find me." Li Wei stood at a distance, letting them have their moment. Then Mei Lin walked over to him. She took his hand. "You fought for me." He nodded. "I'll always fight for you." She looked into his eyes. "I want to fight, too. For us." And in that quiet exchange, something unshakable formed between them. Not a romance built on fairy tales, but a partnership forged in fire. The heavy downpour cast streaks of rain against the coffee shop windows, painting the glass with fleeting silver trails. Inside, the warmth of brewed coffee and low jazz music created a cocoon from the storm outside. Mei Lin sat by the window, her fingers wrapped around a ceramic mug, steam brushing her cheeks. But her heart wasn't warm. It thudded unevenly, pulsing with confusion, doubt, and an aching sense of loss. It had been 3 days since Li Wei disappeared. No calls, no messages, no sign of the charming stranger who had captivated her so unexpectedly that night. She had replayed every moment, the laugh they shared over dumplings, the hesitant yet intense way he looked at her, the kindness behind his silences. Was she wrong to believe it meant something? She wasn't a girl prone to fantasies. Life had taught her better. But with Li Wei, everything had felt different. Her phone buzzed. Mei Lin nearly dropped her mug. It wasn't him. Just an alert from her university's payment portal, another overdue notice for her tuition balance. The red notification stared at her like an accusation. She sighed and pushed the mug aside. The warmth that had been in her chest moments ago vanished. Meanwhile, across the city, in the penthouse of an elite high-rise, Li Wei stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling window, watching the same rain fall from a much higher altitude. His assistant, Jun, stood quietly nearby, waiting for instructions. "You canceled all my meetings today?" Li Wei asked without turning around. "Yes, sir," Jun replied. "As you requested." Li Wei's hands were clenched behind his back. He was still haunted by the blind date, haunted by the girl who had slipped past every defense he had so carefully constructed over the years. Her innocence, her sincerity, the pain she tried to hide with a smile. It was all burned into his mind. He hadn't meant to disappear. But after Jun revealed who Mei Lin truly was, a struggling student from a family caught in scandal, Li Wei had felt an unfamiliar conflict, not because of who she was, but because of who he was. He was supposed to stay cold, distant, untouched. But Mei Lin made him feel vulnerable, and that scared him more than anything. "I want to see her again," he finally said, breaking the silence. Jun didn't flinch. "Would you like me to arrange a private meeting, sir?" Li Wei shook his head slowly. "No, she deserves honesty. No disguises this time. I'll go as myself." "But, sir—" "I'll go today." Later that evening, Mei Lin was at her part-time job at the library, sorting a stack of old psychology books. Her mind wandered. She was almost finished with her shift, and the rain had finally stopped. The silence in the building made her feel more alone than usual. Suddenly, the main door creaked open. She turned automatically, expecting a student. But it wasn't a student. It was him, Li Wei. No disguise, no casual outfit. He wore a dark, tailored coat, his hair slightly damp from the rain. His presence filled the entire aisle. He looked older, sharper, yet equally haunted. Mei Lin froze, one hand still on a book spine. He took a step forward, eyes locked onto hers. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for disappearing." Mei Lin blinked. She didn't know whether to scream, cry, or throw the book in her hand. Instead, she whispered, "You left without a word." "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid of what I was starting to feel, and afraid of what you might think once you knew the truth." She stepped closer now. "What truth?" "That I'm not who I said I was. My name is Li Wei, CEO of the Hanlong Group." Her brows furrowed. She let the name sink in. The Hanlong Group. Every student in business school had heard of them. "And you were pretending to be someone else?" He nodded. "It was supposed to be just a blind date for a friend. A joke. But then I met you." Silence fell, thick, unforgiving. Mei Lin finally spoke. "So everything was a lie?" "No," he said instantly. "Everything I felt was real." She looked away, struggling with her breath. The storm outside had passed, but inside her it raged harder than ever. She wanted to believe him. Her heart begged her to, but her head screamed warnings. Billionaires didn't belong in her world. They didn't understand struggling for rent or skipping meals to afford textbooks. And yet, he had come here to find her. "Why now?" she asked. Li Wei stepped forward. "Because I couldn't forget you. And I don't want to live a life where you're not in it." A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "I don't know what this is," she said, "or what we're even doing, but I haven't been able to forget you either." He exhaled, relief washing over his face. "Then let's start again," he said. She looked up at him. "No lies?" "No lies." Over the next few days, they met again, first at the library and then a nearby park. Everything was quiet between them, but deeply felt. Mei Lin asked questions. Li Wei answered them all. He even told her about the company's struggles, the board members who didn't trust him, and the inheritance he almost walked away from to live a life free of pressure. With Mei Lin, he felt human again, real, seen. But not everyone was happy about their blooming connection, especially not Bai Hua. She was the heiress of a rival conglomerate and had long been unofficially attached to Li Wei by family expectations. She had heard whispers about the poor girl who had captured Li Wei's attention and found it both amusing and insulting. One evening, Bai Hua waited outside Mei Lin's university building, seated in a sleek car with black-tinted windows. She wore a crimson dress and had a smirk that could cut glass. When Mei Lin exited the gate, Bai Hua stepped out. "Mei Lin, right?" she called. Mei Lin turned, confused. "I thought it was time we met." "Do I know you?" Mei Lin asked. Bai Hua laughed. "No, but you should know who you're messing with." Mei Lin's chest tightened. Bai Hua stepped closer. "Li Wei is from our world. Yours? It's beneath him. A distraction at best." Mei Lin swallowed hard but didn't flinch. "I don't care where he's from," she said. "I care about who he is." Bai Hua's smirk disappeared. "Then let me remind you what happens to people who reach too far. You might have his attention for now, but eventually he'll come to his senses." She got back into her car and drove off, leaving Mei Lin standing on the sidewalk, trembling but determined. Inside her, something stronger than fear took root. Love wasn't about matching bank accounts or family names. And if this was the start of a war, then so be it. She wasn't going to back down. Not this time. The days that followed Bai Hua's confrontation were a blur of emotions for Mei Lin. She tried to focus on her studies, on her tutoring jobs, on her sick mother who needed medication, and rent money that never seemed to stretch far enough. But Bai Hua's words echoed in her head like a ticking clock. You might have his attention for now, but eventually he'll come to his senses. Had she been a fool to hope? Still, every evening, Li Wei would call her. Not as a CEO, not as a man of wealth or power, but as someone searching for something real. He asked about her day, her favorite book, the scar on her left wrist she always hid. She found herself looking forward to those calls like they were lifelines. One evening, she met him outside her favorite ramen shop. "Why here?" Li Wei asked, noticing the chipped sign and mismatched tables inside. "It's the only place that serves dinner for under 15 yuan and doesn't judge you for eating alone," she said with a shy smile. He smiled back, then held the door open for her. They ate in the corner booth, sharing bowls and laughter. For the first time in days, Mei Lin felt like nothing else existed. No overdue bills, no whispers about their differences, no Bai Hua. After dinner, they walked in silence down a quiet alley lined with flickering street lamps. Mei Lin tugged her coat tighter against the cold. Li Wei noticed and removed his jacket without a word, placing it over her shoulders. She looked up at him. "Thank you for not running again." "I wanted to," he admitted, "but I couldn't." "Why?" "Because you're the only thing that's ever made me feel like more than a title." They stood there for a moment. The city around them faded. She leaned into his chest, and he wrapped his arms around her carefully, like she was something precious he didn't quite know how to hold. But from across the street, a camera clicked. Hidden in a car, Bai Hua's hired photographer zoomed in and snapped several more shots. She smiled coldly. "Let's see how long this fantasy lasts." The next morning, Li Wei arrived at the Hanlong headquarters where chaos waited for him. His office was filled with whispers. Board members looked uneasy. Even his assistant Jun seemed nervous. "What's going on?" Li Wei asked. Jun hesitated, then handed him a tabloid newspaper. "Cold CEO's secret love affair, spotted with university girl from disgraced family." Below the headline was a photo, him and Mei Lin, wrapped in each other's arms, clearly taken without their knowledge. Li Wei's jaw tightened. "This wasn't supposed to get out," Jun said quietly. "But someone wanted it to." Bai Hua's name was mentioned in connection with the source. Li Wei tossed the paper onto his desk. "And the board?" "They want an explanation." Some are pushing for you to issue a statement, distancing yourself. I won't, he said instantly. John looked surprised. Sir, this could affect the company's stock, your public image. I don't care. I won't pretend she means nothing to me. June hesitated, then gave a slight nod. Understood. Meanwhile, Mei Lin was at the university library when the rumors began spreading like wildfire. Students stared, whispers followed her like shadows. I heard she trapped him. She's doing it for money. Typical. Pretty face, poor background. Mei Lin's phone buzzed non-stop with messages from unknown numbers. Some were cruel, others mocking. She shut it off. When she returned to her apartment, her mother was already reading the same newspaper. May, her mother whispered. Is this true? Tears welled in Mei Lin's eyes. I didn't ask for this, Mama. I didn't know people could be so cruel. Her mother placed a trembling hand on hers. Then you must be stronger. If this is real, if what you feel for him is real, then fight for it, but protect yourself too. That night, Li Wei showed up at her door. His hair was disheveled. His coat looked like it had been rained on again. But his eyes burned with something fierce and unshakable. Don't believe what they say, he said the moment she opened the door. I don't, she replied. But I'm scared. So am I, he said. But I'd rather be scared with you than alone in my cold world. She stepped aside, letting him in. They sat together in silence for a while, the buzz of the city outside muffled by the thin apartment walls. He looked around, cracked tiles, patched curtains, and the hum of a fridge that sounded like it was ready to die. Is this where you grew up? He asked softly. She nodded. Most people wouldn't step foot here. I don't care where you live, he said. I care where your heart lives. And then he took her hand in his. Mei Lin felt something shift. This was no longer a fantasy, no longer a game of opposites colliding. It was real. But reality came with consequences. The next morning, her scholarship was suddenly put under review. The dean called her in and implied that her new associations might reflect poorly on the institution. Sponsors had already pulled support from students connected to her class. Mei Lin walked out of that office with her head spinning. Her education, her one chance at a better life, was hanging by a thread. She found herself walking toward Li Wei's office building like she was in a dream. Security stopped her at the front, but within minutes, Li Wei appeared in the lobby. She ran to him, eyes shining with unshed tears. They're trying to take everything from me, she whispered. Then let me give you something instead, he said. And right there in front of everyone, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, not flashy, not loud, just elegant, understated. A single sapphire sat in the center. My mother gave this to me before she passed, he said. She said to give it to the person who made me feel again. Mei Lin looked at him, stunned. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay. With me. Even if the world doesn't want us to. And through her tears, she smiled. I'll stay. But neither of them knew that the worst was yet to come. Because Bai Hua was done playing games, and her next move would shatter everything. The cold wind bit at Li Wei's face as he stood outside Mei Lin's apartment building, his expensive coat doing little to shield the storm raging inside him. His hand hovered over the call button, paralyzed between restraint and desperation. She hadn't responded to his messages in 2 days. Not since he dropped her off after the dinner at Silver Garden, not since the truth had almost slipped from his lips. The truth that he wasn't just some random guy doing a favor for a friend. He was Li Wei, the CEO of Land Tech Global, The same company Mei Lin's father once worked for. The company she blamed for her family's downfall. His hand clenched into a fist. He couldn't walk away anymore. Inside the apartment, Mei Lin sat cross-legged on her mattress, surrounded by textbooks she wasn't reading. Her thoughts spun in tight, anxious loops. Why had he gone so quiet? Why did it feel like something had changed the moment she looked into his eyes that night? She had felt it. Like a storm had passed through him, and she was the only one left standing in the wreckage. Then came the knock. Soft, hesitant. She didn't move. The knock came again, firmer this time. When she opened the door, her breath caught. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His tie was loose, his hair slightly mussed, and his eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, looked unraveled asterisk. "Can we talk?" he asked. Mei Lin stepped aside without a word. He entered the small room, taking in the threadbare curtains, the second-hand furniture, and the single fading photograph on the wall, her with her father. "I owe you the truth," he said. She turned to him slowly. "The truth about what?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled something from his coat pocket and set it on the table between them. Her eyes widened. It was her father's old employee badge. Landtech Global. Trembling, she picked it up. "Where did you get this?" "I've had it for a long time," he said, voice low. "He worked for my company, and He hesitated. "I am the company." The room spun. "You... what?" "I'm Li Wei," he confessed, CEO of Landtech. "I went on that date pretending to be someone else, for friend. It was never supposed to mean anything." She backed away like he'd struck her. "You lied to me." "I didn't plan to," he said quickly. "After the first date, I wanted to tell you. But then I saw how much you hated the name Landtech, how much pain it brought you, and you thought it'd be better to keep lying." "No," he said, voice cracking. "I thought if I told you, I'd lose you before I even had the chance to try." She stared at him, eyes brimming with betrayal and disbelief. "You don't understand what your company did to us. My father, he gave everything to Landtech. And when the layoffs came, they didn't even let him clear his desk. He came home with a box and a broken heart. He never recovered." Li Wei swallowed hard. "I know, and I'm sorry. I've spent years trying to fix the culture, trying to undo what people like my father did before me. But I didn't know about yours, not until I saw that photo." Mei Lin's hands shook. "It's too late," she whispered. "You should go." Li Wei took a step forward, but her eyes turned to steel. "Go." He left in silence. That night, Mei Lin cried harder than she had in years. And Li Wei? He stared out of his penthouse window, the city lights below blurring into meaningless glows. He had everything. Power, wealth, respect. But none of it mattered if she couldn't forgive him. The next day, a storm hit the city, literal and emotional. As Mei Lin trudged to her part-time job at the bookstore, she was soaked within minutes. But she didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore. Not until she stepped into the shop and found a strange man waiting for her. He wore a gray suit, held a briefcase, and introduced himself with a polite nod. "I represent Mr. Li Wei." Her eyes narrowed. "What does he want?" "Just a moment of your time." He handed her an envelope and left without another word. Inside was a document, a resignation letter from Li Wei, resigning as CEO of Landtech Global, effective immediately, and a handwritten note. "If loving you costs me everything, then I'll give it freely. Because you gave me something more than I ever gave myself. Hope, Li Wei." She sat in the break room, stunned. Was it true? Had he really walked away from his empire? For her? She didn't know what to feel, but she knew one thing. She had to find him. Li Wei sat in a quiet tea house outside the city, far from the boardrooms and noise. He sipped bitter oolong, trying to numb the ache in his chest. He didn't hear the door open. Didn't realize she was there until he looked up and saw her, soaked, breathless, eyes wide. "You idiot," she said. He stood, stunned. You gave it all up?" He nodded slowly. "It didn't mean anything without you." She crossed the room in 2 steps and hit his chest with her fists. "Why would you do that?" "Because I love you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Say it again," she whispered. "I love you," he said, pulling her into his arms. "I love you more than I ever thought I could. You showed me how to feel, how to see people, not just profits. You made me human again." She cried into his chest, and he held her, like she was the only thing anchoring him to this world. "I am still angry," she mumbled. "I know. I don't forgive you. Yet." "I'll wait," he said. "For as long as it takes." But peace was not theirs yet. Because as they stood in that tea house, afar from the city's chaos, a storm gathered behind closed doors. Someone had seen the resignation, and someone was furious. In a high-rise office, Li Wei's cousin, Jian, watched the announcement on his tablet with a slow, cruel smile. So he finally gave up the throne. For a girl. He turned to his assistant. "Prepare the documents. We move at midnight." Back in the tea house, Mei Lin stirred in her sleep as Li Wei stared at the stars through the open window. He had peace now. But for how long? He had Mei Lin. But could he keep her safe? As the wind whispered through the mountains, a question echoed in his mind. What price must love pay when the world wants to tear it apart?